I'd like to welcome everybody to our Zoom. We're very fortunate today. We have Vetigenics and Adriann Sax is here with us, and we're going to talk about something that's very dear to my heart, and I hope is to everyone as well, which is our pets. And I think during the pandemic, the pets actually became, if they weren't already a member of your family, they became an integral part of your family, emotionally, physically. And in return for that, we'd like their health to be good. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Adrianna and let her tell you about the company. Adrianna?
Great, thank you, Wendy. So I'd like to start by asking a question. What if? What if your dog was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, given a survival prognosis of 4 to 6 months, offered a repurposed human toxic chemotherapy, or perhaps a purely palliative treatment to make them comfortable for the remaining days? You could accept this as your only alternative. But what if instead you had access to a fully canine immunotherapy that enabled your dog's own immune system to fight the disease, offered you extended quality time with your pet with no debilitating side effects, easily administered in your veterinarian's office? Technical complexity and challenges with immunogenicity have prevented this as a treatment option. Until now, you have the choice. My name is Adriann Sax, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vetigenics. And you've just seen why and how the company was founded. Vetigenics is an animal health biotech, and we are enabling the life-saving benefits of antibody-based immunotherapy to treat the diseases of the pets we love and care for. Cancer is the leading cause of death in pet dogs. 1 in 4 dogs will die from the disease each year. Current treatment includes surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, which can range from $5,000 to well over $11,000 per course of treatment. Based on market research, 370,000 pet parents have made the choice to pursue aggressive chemotherapy, which today is not species specific, offers a mere few months of survival, and causes debilitating side effects. Vetigenics advancing cancer therapies aim to replace chemotherapy and capture a significant share of this growing market by offering precise, highly efficacious, tolerable therapies that can be easily administered. Over the past 10 years, multiple attempts have been made to develop canine antibody immunotherapies, but they've been unsuccessful. These drugs were withdrawn from the market as they were shown to be ineffective in practice, resulting from poorly designed clinical trials, neutralization or rejection by the dog, or lack of drug specificity to the target. Additional challenges related to dose, schedule, and route of administration have further plagued antibody therapies and limited their market penetration due to the minimal benefit provided. High cost has been a further deterrent from pursuing companion animal antibody therapeutics. But today, as Wendy said, consumers are investing more in their pets' veterinary care and demanding high-cost interventions to save their lives. Innovative technologies and cutting-edge science, only applied to human drug development, is now being used to treat all members of the family. Vetigenics solution, cannabodies. Vetigenics cannabodies bring together the huge potential of antibody therapeutics and the species-specific attributes required to overcome the technical challenges to make them. Cannabodies are unique, fully canine antibody fragments to any disease target, uniquely selected from our proprietary canine phage display libraries, created from the RNA extracted from spleens from actual dogs for therapeutic reasons, representing the full antibody diversity of a dog's own immune system. We further select antibodies by Vetigenics' innovative panning process for desired traits such as binding, functional characteristics, and developability. The early identification of these important attributes saves time and money getting to a lead candidate, minimizing further engineering such as canonization, and ensuring good developability for the future. Once selected, antibodies can be immediately formatted into a preferred therapy for immediate evaluation in species-specific clinical trials. Phage display technology is a proven technology for antibody discovery in human health, and successful commercial products such as Humira were created using this approach. Although the patents for the underlying technology have since expired, the use of phage display in animal health remains open for further innovation. As a result, Vetigenics' core technology, created by Dr. Siegel, one of our founders, has been exclusively licensed to Vetigenics for veterinary use and is covered by trade secrets and know-how developed by Dr. Siegel over his 40-year career. To date, Vetigenics, supported by the University of Pennsylvania, has discovered 3 candidates that we are taking into development to treat cancer in dogs. These products have composition of matter patents and are in various stages of preparation and filing. All newly developed products will be owned by Vetigenics. Vetigenics has made significant progress over the last year as we have transitioned the company from an academic startup to an independent animal health company. We're currently an LLC, but are poised and ready to convert to a C Corp simultaneous with this financing. We've received $500,000 to date and are excited to share that Vetigenics has been awarded a phase 2 SBIR grant of $2 million, which we anticipate funding sometime in the third quarter of this year. A recent third-party evaluation estimates that Vetigenics' pre-money value is $4 million prior to the SBR financing. Further validation of our novel approach is our exciting partnership with Merck Animal Health that we executed in December of 2020. Our revenues, as shown in the bottom, have initially come from grants and partnership, as you can see in the green. And this will continue through the end of 2021 until the company begins to commercialize our antibody reagents for clinical research at the end of 2022. This will continue until we launch our therapeutics to treat dogs with cancer by early 2025. However, we anticipate receiving additional partnerships to provide an ongoing revenue stream in the form of milestone payments and royalties. Our founders, both professors at University of Pennsylvania, are internationally recognized for their expertise, with the entire leadership team uniquely experienced in all aspects of immunotherapy development, discovery, and operations, complemented by a devotion and understanding of animal health. We are thrilled to have a strong group of advisors to round out all key aspects of the business, including technical, legal, IP, and regulatory. As you can see, the investor and partner interest is growing in companion animal immunotherapies, recognizing the demand from pet owners who want better, safer, life-saving treatments and are willing to pay for them. As mentioned, Vetigenics executed its first discovery collaboration with Merck Animal Health in December of last year. This was an important value-creating milestone as it validated our approach and speaks to the importance, novelty, and potential of companion animal biologics for the future. These partnerships are also important to drive an exit for the company, as seen with Aratana and NextVet that started as partnerships and were acquired by large animal health pharma with strong pivotal data. At Vetigenics, we are committed to improving the lives of companion animals through advanced science-based medicine. Our immunotherapy experienced leadership team has solved the challenges to make fully canine immunotherapies using our novel platform technology. We hope to build on our success in developing cancer therapies to develop new products to treat other unmet canine diseases such as infection, inflammation, pain, and allergy. We believe grants and third-party partnerships will maximize our capital efficiency going forward. And we're seeking up to $3 million in capital to generate proof of concept in the clinic with our 2 lead compounds in dogs with cancer, identify new opportunities for portfolio expansion, further our IP for our advancing products, and to strengthen our infrastructure to support our growing and advancing pipeline. Thank you for this opportunity, and we hope you will join us on this journey.
Thank you so much, Adriann. We have quite a few attendees today. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to put them in Q&A or to put them on the chat. I'd be happy to ask. In the meantime, I have a few questions because I'm not a doctor, so you can't laugh at me.
This question is a good question.
So each dog breed has different genetics. So for those of us that aren't really smart in the genetics front, my dog that my children love, who may be a companion animal, has cancer. I find an oncologist. Step by step, they're going to go in and determine the type of tumor? How does it work from a practical standpoint?
So you have 2 questions there. One is about the breed of dog. So like people, there are certain what are called, there are certain genetic risks that are born into certain breeds of dogs. For example, Burmese mountain dogs have a high incidence of cancer. And it's very similar to a human, for example, that may have a BRCA mutation that's passed from generation to generation. So we do know that some dogs have a higher risk of cancer. But the underlying genetics of different tumors uniquely is specific to that tumor. And typically what happens is you have a dog that has a tumor that you feel, or perhaps the dog's behavior will change, and you'll take them initially to a family veterinarian who will diagnose that the dog has cancer. And that's usually done with perhaps a tumor biopsy, x-rays, or blood work. And then usually they will refer you to a veterinary oncologist. Veterinary oncologists are able to do some of the more sophisticated tests like biopsying the tumor, understanding what the genetics are of that tumor. Some veterinary oncologists are really going and doing that work, but many of them will be able to diagnose the cancer just from the initial tests that are done, and then prescribe a chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, depending on the type of cancer, where the dog can be treated. And as I mentioned today, many dogs are receiving human chemotherapies that were never really designed to treat dogs, and unfortunately can cause some fairly significant toxicity to the dog, and have shown not to really be of tremendous benefit. The other challenge is that these chemotherapies are very toxic. And so they need to be administered by a veterinary oncologist because they have this special technology within their facilities to manage toxic chemotherapy. So that can be a challenge for certain people because they don't have access to a veterinary oncologist. The benefit of our therapies is their subcutaneous injection given once a month that can be done right in your family veterinarian's office. They're not toxic, and it's much easier for the pet parent to receive therapy than by having to go to a veterinary oncologist. Although a veterinary oncologist is uniquely skilled to treat canine cancers. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I have a much better handle on it now. So they'll be able to go right to their vet once they have a diagnosis, or their vet may make the diagnosis, and then they can just get these shots, and they're not toxic, and they're not throwing up and sick and everything else.
Yeah, that's ultimately the goal. Unfortunately, right now, your vet generalist or your family veterinarian is set up to administer toxic chemotherapy. They can do surgery in their offices, and some do. But if your dog requires chemotherapy today or radiation, that's not something your family office practitioner can administer. And so then they will refer you. And some pet parents don't have access to a veterinary oncologist. There are only 425 veterinary oncologists in the country. The number is growing, but by and large, it's still small. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to do, is bring these therapies to the family practitioner, so a pet parent can get the dog administered in their office, or get the drug administered easily in their office without these toxicities.
Very cool. So under what conditions are you, or will you start drawing down you said you have an SBLI?
SBIR, right? It's a small business grant. So the small business grant Vetigenics actually started as I mentioned earlier, as an academic startup. And the objective of the company was to generate fully canine antibodies to be used in the dog. And the dog would be a parallel patient population for human cancer patients. So dog and human cancers, interestingly, are almost identical in many cases. The spontaneous nature of the disease, the underlying genetics, and the pathophysiology of the cancer. And so today, a lot of our cancer treatment is moving towards immunotherapy. And as you know, a lot of human drugs are first evaluated in animals, primarily mice, to assess their efficacy and safety. The challenge is that a mouse, it doesn't have an intact immune system. And usually we have to implant a human cancer into the mouse to evaluate it. So it's not really a natural situation. And this is one of the reasons many of our drug trials fail in animal studies. So the NCI has evaluated the dog as a parallel patient population and would like to use the dog as a preclinical animal model to test immunotherapies to accelerate human immunotherapy development. And that's how Vetigenics was started, to make these canine-specific antibodies to use in preclinical animal trials. However, we still do that, and we will continue, and the SBIR will support growing infrastructure to make these canine reagents, as we call them, available. But what Vetigenics is doing is, in addition to supplying these reagents for canine clinical trials, we're advancing them to treat dogs with cancer, because
why not?
Not only are we helping humans, but we want to help the dogs too.
Yeah. So this is super fascinating. I recall it now when we first spoke about it. Has there been any proven results as it relates to that process, the parallel treatment, or I'm not going to get the words right, that help determine whether there's something that you're doing that's helpful to cancer in humans? So the intent of that initial effort?
So there are a number of drugs that have been improved that have used dogs as preclinical animal models, and they have ultimately been approved for use. And these are primarily small molecules to date, but they have not only accelerated the development of these drugs for humans, but a couple of them have been approved to treat dogs with cancer. The challenge with antibody therapies and immunotherapies is that when we use these drugs in dogs, they're human and the dog rejects them, which is why you need an antibody that is fully canine. So to date, Vetigenics is supporting that effort, and we are, that was the underlying rationale for the grant. So the grant will support this work going forward.
So will that help it seems logical that you would draw down that grant for that effort, but it would also coincidentally help you grow this part of the company.
That's correct, Arthur. Actually, the grant gives us tremendous synergy because the same drugs that we are developing and manufacturing to be used in preclinical animal trials, we then take those drugs and commercialize them to treat dogs through the veterinarian or veterinary oncologist.
Yeah.
And the grant has been, we're very excited about it because the greatest cost in the development of these drugs is the manufacturing, the production, and that will all be covered through the grant. So again, it offers us tremendous efficiencies in our development process.
Great. Wendy?
Yeah, we have a question from the audience. So the question is, humanized mice are very commonly used in other therapies. Could your technology be used in other areas?
So yes. As a matter of fact, our partnership with Merck Animal Health is in non-cancer indications. Because our phage display library, our core technology, represents the full diversity of the dog's immune system, any disease where we have a sense of the target or what's causing the underlying disease, we can pan our library and generate antibody-based therapeutics to any disease target. So as I mentioned, other areas that we believe are high priorities are infection. So for example, if any of you've had a pet that has the ear infection, it's always itching, that would be a great opportunity. Pain is another one. Allergies, so any kind of skin allergy or even ear allergy. So there are many different disease areas where the underlying targets are known, and we've learned this from humans, that we will be able to test in dog models.
That's fantastic. Now, I know in regular pharma, non-canine pharma, a lot of times you get pretty far and then a big pharma company comes in and wants to swoop the whole thing up, right? We see that happen all the time. People are very excited. There's a new cancer drug, there's a new glio drug, and then boom, in comes whoever, whatever, family pharmaceutical company. So my question is, as you go along, as you get through clinical trials, is there that kind of partnership hope, or is this going to be standalone, directly marketed to veterinarians?
So I think, and I had mentioned this, as with human pharma, small biotech companies are more nimble, can be more innovative, and really rapidly develop these novel drugs, which makes Vetigenics attractive not only for the drugs that we have already generated and will generate, but the breadth of our platform technology offers a number of potential options to expand the portfolio. What we would anticipate is that we will partner with companies like Merck Animal Health, and we're in discussions with a number of the other large animal pharma like Zoetis and Elanco. And as the drugs advance in the development process and the data is generated, ultimately one of those partnerships we hope will move to an acquisition. And we've seen that historically with companies like NextVet and Aratana that were ultimately acquired. And so we hope that that will be the case. Now, for diseases that are non-cancerous, so allergy, for example, we will not pursue commercialization. A company that is small like ours, it would be an unnecessary cost to build the infrastructure to commercialize a product that has, hundreds of thousands of patients. And large animal pharma can do it much better. And so ultimately, we will partner on the commercialization of these drugs in the event we're not acquired. However, for cancer, because the audience initially is so small, as I mentioned before, about 425 vet oncologists, if we are not acquired, we are prepared to commercialize our initial cancer compounds to that community to build the awareness and acceptance of the drug with veterinary oncologists that will ultimately spill over to the veterinary internist.
That's fantastic. And thank you for permitting me to ask so many questions.
No, I love it. Thank you. Keep asking.
I'm very familiar with, some of the pharma protocols, the clinical trials, and how everything works in human drugs, but I really had never thought about canine drugs, and then canine drugs that might actually be able to be used in humans. So, I really am fascinated. I want to follow up with you because it's really interesting. If any of our attendees have any questions, please feel free to, you can either post them in chat or you can post them on the Q&A. But I find this is just great. So I have to ask you, because I have a cat, is that ever going to be a thing also for cats or no?
So the answer is yes. We are in the process of creating a feline library. Part of the delay in doing that is the full genetic makeup of the cat's immunoglobulin genes have not been identified, so they're still being discovered. Once the full immunoglobulin has been published, then we can complete the feline library. Cats, like dogs, have many unmet diseases that we believe that we can address with a fully feline library. So it is something that we are in development, but again, we are probably about, from my understanding, about 6 to 8 months away from getting the full immunoglobulin gene sequence so that we can complete the library. But we love cats too, Wendy.
Well, thank you. I know sometimes
do it for horses, believe it or not. There are some diseases of horses like laminitis and other things that we could actually do something similar for horses. So
it seems so specialized. Like there's big veterinarians, for farm animals, and little veterinarians for house pet, exotic pet. Kudos, because it's like every time you have something that can help, it's almost a rabbit hole to get to the right people because they're so segregated. And we had a guinea pig. I couldn't take her to our vet. We had to take her to a different vet that just specialized in those kind of animals. So that's amazing. Okay, well, I want to just go over the ask one more time for everybody today, what you're looking for in funding and where that's going to take you. I know you did the slides, but just so everybody can hear it before they wrap up. If you want to go over what you're looking for to get to the clinical style.
So this is our seed round, and we are hoping to raise between $2 and $3 million. To date, about a little more than half of that is committed. We do have a lead investor that is, I am days away from getting a term sheet. It will be a price round, but it is a significant value creating round for those initial investors. They will receive the benefit of the SBIR as well as the actual commercialization of some of the reagents that I referenced earlier. It will position the company well for the Series A, which we anticipate requiring in 2023. And that will be roughly about 10 million. And that will take us to commercialization of the first 2 compounds. But the company will be generating revenue at that point and could potentially be acquired prior to the Series A.
That's fantastic. And I'll ask Arthur if he has any last questions, and I'll talk to you later. I know one of the families that's very involved in pet products has a foundation that also does grants in this type of area. So we'll catch up.
Morris, could it be Morris?
Nope. But I'll share you with you offline. Arthur, anything else you would love to add?
Thank you. Rosario has a question, just real quick. Is the approval process similar to human drugs? In other words, can you compare and contrast that into the approval process?
If it's okay, I have a slide. If you don't mind, can I bring it up, because I think it would actually answer the question, and I think it's an important one. It's right here. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So actually, let's do this one. So companion animal drug development is a much faster and less expensive process. The typical drug for animal health only needs roughly 3 to 6 years to develop. The development cost is fairly insignificant based on the sales of the drug. But as you can see, as compared to the human counterpart, the overall revenues are much lower. The important point, though, is that these drugs are not really subject to generic competition or insurance price pressures, third-party reimbursement. The majority of these drugs are paid in cash. Now, we know about 20% of pet parents have insurance. And the way insurance works in the United States is that the pet parent has to pay for the therapy, submit the bills, and they get reimbursed. Yeah. So the approval hurdles are much lower. It is a cash paying consumer, and the probability of success is quite higher. On this slide, you can see specifically for our antibodies, the initial proof of concept takes about 1.5 years. And then once it goes into pivotal trials, it will be approved in 2 to 3 years. So here we are, 4.5 to 5 years from start to finish, which is quite rapid. We also anticipate that the clinical drug cost to manufacture for our antibodies is roughly only $8 million, significantly lower than what you would expect of a multi-billion-dollar human drug. I believe right now the number is about 1.45 billion to develop a human cancer therapy. The other important point is that part of the proof of concept involves a study in dogs with cancer that gives you a sense of how the drug is going to perform. So you know early on the safety profile and the efficacy profile in dogs with cancer before you go into the registration. And this is particularly important because the cost to get to that point is fairly low. But once you start investing in the registration, which is where the majority of your investment will come, you have a 64% probability of success of getting to approval versus a phase 1 trial in humans, where most human trials don't succeed in phase 1 or in phase 2. And so the probability at that point is only 15% that will actually go and achieve approval. So although veterinary therapies may not have the revenues that you see on the human side, it's a very efficient and value creating development path. And again, a blockbuster may only be 250 million versus $1 billion, but you're able to generate that revenue for longer periods of time where it's not subject to insurance companies or other pricing pressures.
Yeah, and their inflection point is earlier to have an exit for Merck or something. I'm not suggesting that, but
yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, super cool. Well, we'll make sure everybody gets in touch with you, and thank you for doing this. Wendy, nice job. Thank you. Would you mind wrapping things up? And I'll send you a note, Adriann.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Well, and Wendy and Arthur and the rest of the family office team, we appreciate this opportunity, and please feel free to send your questions. I'm happy to get on the phone separately if you'd like to discuss it further.
Thank you so much. And like Arthur said, I'll be in touch. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the questions. And I'm going to close it out and wish you all a great day. Thanks for sharing your time with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.